Welcome to the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I'm your host, Lyndsay Dowd. My goal is to help train leaders and sales organizations how to manage and deliver results with empathy, compassion, and kindness. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I got a good one for you today. Please welcome to the show, Kim Brady, who is a life and business coach, a speaker, a two-time best-selling author who channels athletic excellence to elevate small businesses and enhance the lives of entrepreneurs. Kim has recently published Get Stuck In, I have a hot little copy right here, Lessons from the Pitch to Build Your Business, and is also a co-author on a collaborative project titled Forever Athlete, a collection of stories from high-level performers in both sport and life. Her areas of expertise include working small business owners and entrepreneurs with less than 50 employees, athletes in transition from sport, team buildings, leadership development, and LGBTQ advocacy. Kim, so happy to have you. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Lyndsay. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to see you.
It is my pleasure. So I got the lucky fortune of hearing so much of your story, but would you please give us some background as to who you are? Because there's so much to it.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to my kitchen. Let's start there. I love inviting people into my space and into my home, and having immigrant grandparents from Italy. It's a thing about food and cooking and culture. So growing up, I was a kid who loved to play sports. I was a kid who loved to cook, and I went away to college on a soccer scholarship, which was awesome, right? And played soccer, wanted to become a family therapist. So I went the traditional route, go to school, get good grades, be a good athlete. You happen to be lucky enough to get a scholarship. And then what? You can't compete afterwards. You don't get paid to play back then. And so I became a family therapist. I moved from California to Michigan, which was culture shock and a half. I came out when I was 17, as open lesbian when I was 17 in college. So going to Michigan was just a big, different place for me. I became a family therapist and a registered social worker for the state of Michigan. And then I ended up leaving that field. I worked in the homes, in with law enforcement, in with behavioral units. I was not a couch therapist. I also got licensed as a soccer coach at that time and was coaching soccer, going to school, bartending. You and I can totally do the mixology thing as well. And then I left that field and went to Colorado because I couldn't afford to move back home to California, and did the Colorado thing and said, hey, how do I use this people degree and make money? Because I'm not doing therapy anymore. So I got into sales. So that was my first stint in the sales realm and worked for several different companies. And then my last sales job that I had was working with small business owners. And so I was around entrepreneurs, I was around CPAs, I was around attorneys, I was around this group of people that planted seeds to all of a sudden shift gears for me of like, why don't I do something different? But the person who actually wanted me to do something different was really my nephew. And he knew I was miserable. And I quit my job after having a conversation with my nephew walking along the beach in California. And I started my company in 2010, 3 weeks after a conversation with the kiddo. So that's a little bit of the background. I'm sure you'll talk more into the business. But
we've got so much to unpack because I love that you've done so many different things. I mean, we've got soccer, and not just any old soccer, like Olympic level soccer. We've got
not quite. I was a collegiate athlete who played in the Olympic development program, but I did not make it to the national team. Okay, so I can't give myself that credit. Those women are totally above me. I will give you that part.
That's okay. It's pretty high level. So we have soccer, we have a working therapist, we have 3 home states, and then a major pivot. And you know a lot about major pivots, but talk a little bit about that pivot, because what was your company? How did you start it? And the inspiration? And 2010 wasn't an easy time either. So share a little about that.
Well, obviously going in the middle of the recession, I was a person that didn't always think things through. I don't know if any of your audience members are impulsive or not. But whenever I go after something, I go after it full force. So when my nephew basically said, Aunt Kim, I don't really want to follow what you did because you're really unhappy right now. He saw me being unhappy in the company I was working in. He saw that I wasn't really walking my talk, so to speak. And I have 4 nieces and nephews. And for me, it was really important to ensure that I could show them what they could end up doing. Like, I wanted to be their biggest cheerleaders and all these things. But if I'm miserable, how am I able to inspire them? Right. So 3 weeks after seeing my nephew, I walked into my boss's office and said, I don't want to do this anymore. And he goes, do what? And I go, this, I'm resigning. And he's like, Kim, you're one of our top reps, like you're really good at this. And I said, but it's not about what I'm good at. I need to like it. And that's a common problem. People stay at a job because they're making the money or they're good at it, but they're not happy or content. And we know that happiness is fleeting, right? So if I'm consistently miserable, that's also problematic. So I quit my job and just was like, oh, I think I want to build a coffee shop. Maybe I can have my nephew come live with me. He needs to be launched a little bit. My stepsister is an addict and stuff. And so my nephew needed some guidance. And I went to my financial advisor, had this grand idea. I talked to people 3 weeks, mind you, was how quickly I made this decision. And I said, I think I want to do this coffee shop, bring little California to Denver. This would be kind of groovy. And she goes, no, I'm not going to let you spend what little money you have building a brick and mortar. Kim, you've never worked in one place, none of your jobs. You were an in-home therapist, you were on the soccer field, or you're out doing field sales. You're never in the same place. I can't imagine you being in one place. And I was like, ooh, that's a good one. And I always tell people, what's the best no you've ever been given? And that's the pivot point. It was, no, Kim, I'm not going to let you use your money that way. You have to think through this much better than what you're doing. But best advisor I could have.
I'm just going to say, I mean, what a fabulous person to have in your corner, and what a brilliant moment for them to recognize this isn't you. This isn't, and she wasn't saying, I don't believe in you. She was just saying, you will not enjoy this. You've got to figure out something else that's better suited to who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it was I tell people all the time, it was a gift to be told no. And it's not about shutting a door. I mean, we could get laid off, or we could lose our jobs, or we have an injury, or we have a medical dilemma, or whatever. What is it that's going to keep you motivated and going and striving and yearning and doing all the things that keeps your curiosity going, right? And so that's when I sat back and slowed my roll for a second and really started writing out, what kind of lifestyle do I want to live? And it wasn't about a job title. It wasn't about a job description. It wasn't about what company I wanted to work for. It wasn't about anything pretentious in any way, shape, or form of what other people might think or perceive. It was, I've always been a helper. How do I continue serving others? That was always going to be fundamental to me. Another question that I wanted to have was, how can I support or provide a job to other people? I think that would be a gift to give to others. How could I provide a good job to others? So I knew I needed to become a leader at a time that I wasn't quite ready to in some ways. And then the other was, if I get injured or if I can't work, how do I still have money coming in? Providing jobs to others was a big deal, because if I had something happen, or my partner and I weren't together or whatever, I could still work. And the other one, I didn't want to wear a business suit. Absolutely hated the archaic kind of concepts of corporate saying what's professional versus what's not. And I deliberately got tattoos on my arms afterwards to say I would never go back to corporate, because this was back when they were like very, very not okay. Super like I would have to cover my body up and all these things. And so it was just writing down, like, I want to get more tattoos. I don't want to wear business suits. I want to do these things. And then the aha moment came as I was like, I need to kind of get some money coming in. I was cleaning my house all the time. My house was constantly clean. I was calling my friend, hey, can I organize your closet? Can I do something while I figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up? And then I realized that I knew someone who had a cleaning company who didn't have employees. So I called her and said, hey, when I figure out what I do when I grow up, I'm not going to do the coffee shop. Can I, work for you? And she goes, no, I don't want you to work for me. You have an entrepreneurial personality. And I was like, huh. So planted the seed that I could do this thing. And then she goes, I'll teach you what I did. I don't want employees. And I went from the perspective of me wanting employees. So we met in a coffee shop. This was 6 weeks after leaving my job. I quit my job in August. I started my cleaning company with my name, with the tagline, with the insurance in October of 2010.
Amazing.
And I got my first client in October of 2010. And so I literally teach my clients now how to start a business in 90 days. I show exactly what I did to do that. And that was my pivot.
So I do want to go back to something you said earlier. And this is something that when you've left the corporate space, you said, I don't like it. This isn't where I feel good. And I think it's just really becoming, and I don't know if it's because I'm an entrepreneur and I left corporate space too, but I'm seeing so many more people recognize they're not where they're supposed to be. And guys, that's a courageous thing to be able to say, I'm not going to do what's been programmed for generations before me anymore. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to swim upstream, or what you think is swimming upstream. And it might not actually be that. It might be you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
I love that you had the bravery to do it. And I think, whether you lose your job or you're laid off or you get fired or you just leave, I love that you wrote and you started thinking about the things you wanted. I did that too. I wrote a job description. And
right on.
For me, the job description was my intention. This is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And that was the chief heartbeat officer. So I love that you did that. And I think that's such a great tip for people trying to find themselves. And hey, I'm 50 years old and I'm doing that.
Exactly.
So it's not too late to do that. And
we haven't even hit our peak mastery of epicness of each of us as 50-year-olds, because we come from a generation where women weren't supposed to attain these things that we're doing. You and I guarantee you, are sometimes the only women in a room of business owners, and when you surround yourself with people who have opportunities that are different from you, or when you surround yourself with people who've attained something or have gotten something, I want people to have the curiosity and the willingness to ask how they got there. Because most of the time, a person, instead of just spouting on their pedestal, they'll reach out a hand and raise you up and say, hey, I know what it's like to be in that spot. And that's the part of entrepreneurship that I love so much. I've found more people so willing to help in this space than I ever found in corporate. The total betrayals in corporate, the cutthroatness of people stealing on sales teams, witnessing people just breaking up relationships. I saw so many of these things. And how many people, if they had a nephew or they had a person like my financial advisor who just said, that's not you anymore, right? I had a culmination at that time. You ask about the pivot. The courage came from my nephew, from my financial advisor, from people who I had been surrounding myself by, which are small business owners, saying, I see something in you, Kim. I call myself the reluctant leader. I never knew I had to do this thing, but it's a calling for me, for sure.
I love that your nephew recognized that you weren't happy and that you should be doing something else. And it's such a good litmus test for everybody else. And, I use the analogy, metaphor, I guess. When your boss calls, do the hairs on your neck stand up, or are you excited to take the call? And that always helps you understand, oh, wait, no, I hate it. I hate what I'm doing. Holy crap, I hate it.
Right.
You have that epiphany. But I think so many people think work is supposed to be horrible. And when you're doing what you're supposed to do, doesn't mean it's not hard. Doesn't mean it's not sacrifice.
Right.
It just means that you have a much clearer drive and a much clearer goal. And I think in corporate, there's so much insecurity. There's so much fear of, if I don't get credit for this, they're not going to see me. And so you have to come hell or high water, make sure everyone sees you. And it's That's what creates such a cutthroat mentality.
Well, and look at what's happening in the world right now. We are probably going to have the biggest massive layoff of highly educated white collar workers we have ever faced. And so you're going to be in pools of people who have massive experiences fighting with thousands of resumes for these jobs. And I think, I said this to some colleagues of mine the other day, said, I think we are coming to a place where we must help those folks become more entrepreneurial. They have something within them that they can build, they can teach, they can grow, they can do something, because choose your life, like choose yourself, choose your life right now. We're going to be facing this. I honestly really feel that what's
I think we're already in it, Kim. I mean, I really do. I think we've seen 80,000 layoffs in the last months. I mean, that's enormous. And
it's massive.
There's all of that growth we experienced during the pandy is greatly diminished, and figuring out where all those people are going to go is not easy. So having that both multiple streams of income and entrepreneurial spirit, and understanding how to build a personal brand.
Hello.
I mean, you and I talk about that a lot. So, okay. So could you dive a little into what do you do in 90 days? What does somebody need to know?
So I bring people through the 4 pillars of business. The first part is your mindset. You have to have the mindset of what is your passion? What are you passionate about? And what's your purpose? You can have one, but you can't go without both.
Yeah.
So it really is, what is a passion? I have a passion for team, a passion for sport, a passion for cleanliness. Obviously, I built a cleaning company. I had to like it. I mean, I was Italian. That was my chores growing up, right? And people were like, oh my God, you turned something. I said, I actually really liked making my family happy, because I kept my house is clean. Everything was clean. So I had a passion for that. But my purpose, a purpose-driven life, was to be a servant leader of some form. Everything that I've done is a helper mentality. I mean, I can't have a degree or 2 degrees as a therapist and work with the kinds of kids I did that I didn't want to help them, right? So figuring that out, and that next piece is then, what are your core values? What are your non-negotiables? Writing your job description that you talked about, writing your mission statement, right? That's part 1. The next is, if you have those things, then the idea or concept of the vehicle, how small or how big that car is, doesn't really matter. Mine happened to be a cleaning company. Yours happens to be podcasting and building your chief heartbeat officer, et cetera. That branding part of it, right? So you create your vehicle. What is it? What's the entity? What type of business do you want to create? Are you a solopreneur? Are you a person who wants to hire labor? Is it a product or a service you're selling, et cetera? And then the next step is the one that most people don't like doing. It's the operations. It's the foundation of your business. It's who do you need to have involved in your life that has an area of expertise that you don't? An accountant, an attorney, people who are helping with contracts, getting your entity formation, putting your people in place. Your financial advisor, he or she is crucial to your wealth building and your management of your money, right? And so we really start designing that whole piece of your operations. And I teach you with templates and things that I did of how to write your employee handbook, how to do all your operations and policies and procedures, et cetera. And then the last part is that sales and marketing and beta testing. So often we throw so many things at the wall and then we're like, none of it worked, I quit, right? You beta test a few ideas, you throw out your freebies, you throw out your sample, whether it's a newsletter or a free email or whatever, right? And you give people an opportunity to test your product or service that you're doing. And then you beta test and you tweak and you take that period of time. You can go from start to start up in 90 days with a process. And that's what I walk people through. And it's really about them and them coming up with it. I don't have the answers. I help them find them for themselves. It's about them. And that's the part that I love. That's the beginning part of my process. That's my 3-month stuff that I do with people.
And we should probably go back and say, you don't do the cleaning company anymore. You actually sold it.
Yeah, I did. Sorry.
We left that part out. I don't want people to think that you're doing that and all the other things. So that had to be quite a ride, selling your company that you built from scratch.
Yeah, the intentionality was building an asset from the beginning. So the phrase begin with the end in mind is very real. I had wanted to move back home to California. We already knew that. The other part was, how do I get paid with not working? I want to travel. That is a big, big thing of mine. So getting back home to California and being able to travel, I put all of the systems in place from 2015, really started making sure my systems were on lock, that I could travel. So I went to Scotland for 2 weeks with my god sister. I went to France for the Women's World Cup with my best friend. I had people in my life that knew that that was important. So I built something that I could step away from even for a period of time, and it was running on its own. And then I was able to move back home in 2017. So I had a location-based, labor-based service business in Denver that I ran from this kitchen for 3 years. And then in 2019-ish was when I started this thought process of exiting. So it was 12 months. It's how long it took to sell my company. A lot of times people think that it's easy. It's not. It's exposing all of your finances for 3 years is completely mentally and emotionally and financially taxing on you. And so I also teach people about that whole process. But yes, in 2020, 2 days prior to COVID shutting the world, I signed on the dotted line of the sale of my 10-year-old business. And a week later, Colorado shut down. And you couldn't have a more recession-proof business than the necessity of cleaning in the middle of a pandemic. So thankfully, the new owner happens to also be one of my best friends who used to be a boss of mine at Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
I worked there.
No joke. That was by sheer luck. I didn't know, but he was one of my board of directors that I talk about, who's an expert that you keep in your wheelhouse, keeping your tight circle of friends, your front row. He was always in my front row. And I was like, I think I want to sell. We talked about all kinds of stuff. And I talked to a broker and I had other buyers kind of looking at it. And then Jeff, he said, I think I want to buy your business. It's like, what? He goes, you built an entire business in a box. I watched you do it. I want to buy your company. So 9 months after that, so it started at 12 months, 3 months into this process, Jeff puts his bid in the hat. He wins. And 9 months later was able, when we were signed on the dotted line. And the first 2 employees that I hired still work for Jeff in some capacity 12 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. And I had no idea you worked for Enterprise. So did I. So we'll talk about that.
Oh no, you and I are like parallel lives, sister.
No, really. So, okay, I want to do a little pivot because I know your LGBTQ plus advocacy is super important to you. And I really want the audience to hear why. And I really would love you to share how people can be allies, because I think it's something people talk about. I don't think many people know how. For me, it's a huge part of my life. Everyone around me is gay, so it's totally normal. And I have lots of ways to help my friends and family. But for the audience, please share.
Sure. I think the biggest thing is be willing to learn and be open to conversation. You know, I came out at a time where it wasn't as easy as it is now to do. I mean, it's been 35 years. I started doing 33, I don't know, something like that. 33 years. And I started doing speaker panels in college. I was teaching peers that there's nothing wrong with being you. And I think being an ally, when I look at my friends who I consider our allies, is they're willing to stand up against hatred. They're willing to ask questions of why they think a law should be put in place to discriminate. It's still legal in 33 states to get fired for being gay. Whereas, why is it if you're in a relationship with a heterosexual partner, you can put their pictures up, you can put your kids' pictures up. That's not sexualizing anything. I think that's still a problem with how we're viewed, is that our existence is not inherently sexual. No. I knew I was gay before I ever had sex. I knew I was gay as a little girl. So being an ally is really about education and understanding. What does sexual orientation mean to you as a person? When did you first know you were heterosexual? When did you first know that you were attracted to someone of the opposite sex, right? So any question that you're wanting to ask of a person who is different from yourself, ask the same question to yourself. When did you first? That's one of the first ones, because there's some aha moments for people with that.
That's a good point, Kim. I don't think people think of it that way. I think we're in this time where other is bad. And if you don't politically align with my views, you are not going to be my friend. And this kind of like hide behind the keyboard mentality of, I can say whatever I want to you because we're different. I think I'd like to think the world doesn't want to be that way. And I also believe that when people ask questions, they learn things, and it humanizes people when you get the answers. So I love that you said that. I think that's such an important piece. And my husband's really funny. We both have a lot of gay friends, and the gays really like my husband. And so
the gay men
always asking questions, and he comes home giggling, and he has just the best time because, there's the flirtation aspect, but there's also the awareness, and, he's not threatened in any way.
Well, I think that piece right there, he's not threatened. No. Oftentimes otherism occurs because of fear. Completely. Fear of the unknown, fear of someone may think you are something you're not, blah, 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 blah. I can present very feminine and straight looking, straight appearing, right? I can walk in that lane if I choose to. I choose not to hide. I am out in every arena and have been on purpose. So most of the time I'm in sweats and my hair's in a ponytail and, things like that. But if I'm in a dress and I go out to dinner by myself, I'll get hit on by a guy.
Sure.
If I can have an engaging conversation with someone, and then I will tell them, by the way, if they continue, I'm like, no, sorry, I'm not interested. I'm gay. And I've had men who are insecure do one of two things. One, double down and say, no, I can be the guy that fixes that. Or two, they're like, oh, you're only doing that because you like, I'm like, no is a complete answer. I didn't even have to give you that. I'm sharing with you that I can engage and talk with men, but I'm not hitting on you. Having a conversation is not flirting with you, and those kinds of things. So most of the time people come from a perspective of fear, or we also come from the patriarchal perspective of expectation of how women should behave.
Yeah.
And men need to sit back and wonder why every woman is not in your wheelhouse. You're not going to date every single person you hit on. So it doesn't matter whether someone's gay or not. Then on the flip side, I don't like being flirted with when I've told you no, and I shouldn't have to disclose my sexual orientation, right? But we do have to pay attention societally more so about women and men gender roles, much more so than who someone's sleeping with. I couldn't care less who someone's sleeping with or who they're with. I care that they're happy and they're healthy, and it's with a consenting adult and they treat each other right. I'm just very simple and old fashioned. It's the same thing that my family grew up with. Majority of my friends are straight. That's just who I grew up with. But I have gay friends. I've been out for years. I have all kinds of gay friends, right? I just haven't found my person yet. So if you find her, let me know. That'd be great.
I'll keep my eyes peeled. There's always something. So, all right. One of the questions I love to ask is, what inspires you?
I am inspired by the underdog. I'm inspired by people who live their own truth, whatever that means, without doing it to harm others. Let me put that caveat. I see a lot of people go after the thing they want, but they do it in a braggadocious way, or they do it in a posturing, egotistical way. That's not what I'm inspired by. I'm truly inspired by people who go after their goals and dreams. It's why I think I fell into entrepreneurship. It was kind of accidental, but I really love people going after something that's just their own. I'm really driven by that. And I'm curious. I think that curiosity is what helps a lot.
I love that. All right, here's another one for you. What does get stuck in mean? I mean, I have the book, so I can read it, but for the ones that need to get the book.
In soccer, when you go in for a tackle, if you don't go in hard, you're the one who's going to get hurt. You have to get stuck in. And it's a phrase we use to get into a position. Soccer is an aggressive sport. Right. And it's a physical sport. That's why I loved it the most. My nickname in college was Kamikaze. I would go after anything. Yeah. And I was small, but I had a 3-foot vertical. I would literally just go after anything to try to score. And I was a defender as well. And I was an ankle biter. I will chase you down to the end of the earth to not let you score against my team because I want to win so badly. Getting stuck in is that intensity of choosing what you want to do with such a passion and such a perseverance that no matter what comes after you, what comes at you, you're still going to fight through it. That's where, like, you've talked with me twice now. I have an intensity about me. I know that part of me, but I don't know any other way. It's like soccer defined me. I built my business on soccer principles. The piece that I missed in corporate America the most was team and relationship. So I built my team. I called them Team LBC, Little Bit Cleaning. The moment that I hired my first 2 employees, I went from me to we. And it was always about we after that. Always about my team, never about me anymore. It was about my team. And so Get Stuck In is all of that process of teaching people how I built my company through soccer and sports principles. And the blue and gold is from Cal. It's an ode to Cal, where I played.
I love it. I love it. All right, Kim, what would you like your legacy to be?
I want to live a life I don't want to retire from.
Oh, I love that.
I want to continue helping until I die. Period. He made me cry. He said, "You're going to do it." You told me. I was like, "Oh, you're going to kill me." I knew you'd do it. Yeah. Don't quit on yourself. Yeah.
I just love that you said that, because when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it feels really good. And just because you're older, it doesn't mean you have to stop doing it.
No, it might just be the time that you get started doing it, because you've sacrificed so much of yourself for other people, especially women. I work with men and women both, but most of the people that I work with, if they're older, they've sacrificed so much of themselves to help their family or their friend or their partner or whatever, that they've kind of forgotten who they are in this process. And we have the stereotype of men must provide and women are matriarchs and all this stuff. And you lose sight. You're more than a mom. You're more than a working human being. You're more than that. And so I want people to remind themselves that you're just getting started.
So Kim, how do people find you?
They can find me through my website, kimbradybusinesscoaching.com. I'm on LinkedIn a lot more than I'm on some other social media sites. So I'm on LinkedIn with Kim Brady. And I also have Instagram and Facebook, but probably easiest is LinkedIn. Easy breezy. And if someone has an email question, kim@kimbradybusinesscoaching.com.
And we'll post all the socials and your website here so everyone can click on that. But Kim, it has been such a treat to have you as a guest. You have so much to share, and we only skim the surface. There's so much more. Guys, check out Kim, follow her, listen to what she's putting out there on LinkedIn. There's some really great stuff. And of course, grab her books. I was reading Forever Athlete this morning. Great stories, really great stories. So Kim, thank you so much. And stay tuned for more Heartbeat for Hire, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Lyndsay.
Thanks for listening to Heartbeat for Hire. If you like what you hear, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and leave a 5-star review. To keep the conversation going, you can find me on Insta or at LinkedIn at Lyndsay Dowd, H4H. Or you can reach me at my website, heartbeatforhire.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.